macro data coming in from China, which is the biggest consumer of most commodities. China's GDP in the fourth quarter grew by 5.4% on a year-on-year basis versus consensus estimates of 5%. Is this a big positive for global commodity market? Remember, China has vowed further monetary easing and stronger public spending this year. But a key trigger, of course, will be Donald Trump's return on the White House. Remember, US President-elect has threatened tariffs of as high as 60% on Chinese goods. We discussed this with Prathamesh Mallya, Deputy Vice President, Research, Commodities and Currencies at Angel One, who is now joining us. Mr. Mallya, thank you so much for taking your time out and speaking with us here on ET Now. And what do you make of these figures and the implications it will have on commodity market? GDP data has been better than expected, but does this really mean demand revival for industrial metals?
I think to put all the numbers in perspective, this growth of 5% or 5.4% has been consistent for past 3 years. Prior to 2020, China was growing close to around 8% to 10%. So in comparison, this number is very less in compared to the previous years. But looking at perspective per se, taking into consideration the tariff that will be imposed, I think it will be kind of dizzy scenario for China, wherein all the demand and supply dynamics of commodities will possibly take a hit. In that sense, China is primarily an export-oriented economy, but then the consumption of all the metals is something that the world will look at. Past year has not been so good for metals. I think taking into consideration the uncertainty with regards to the policy and tariffs, I think this number really does not give me any hope for a very good pace of base metal prices increasing in 2025.
Really don't give you hope with respect to surge in price in 2025, but the big trigger, of course, will be Trump taking power and the fact that he has already threatened higher tariffs as much as 60% on goods coming in from China. It is difficult to predict what the actual outcome will be, but what are your thoughts on Trump coming into power and its implications on the commodity market?
I think clearly every country who has trade surplus with US have to deal with this tariffs on a constant commodity transactional basis. So it can be any of this commodity in the entire basket. It can be gold, it can be silver, it can be metals perspective per se. But then it really looks uncertain what kind of impact it would have on the momentum of all the base metal prices as well as all the commodity basket. So we really have to wait and watch what exactly comes in terms of policy as far as Trump is concerned.
Watch in just a few days to go, but since you spoke about China's GDP data and that the data is not really promising, help us understand. China has already announced a slew of measures, fiscal and policy measures, and they've announced some more for 2025. How much more stimulus will be considered meaningful for a rebound in industrial metal prices?
Again, to put numbers back in perspective, second largest economy consisting of almost $18 trillion of GDP, 0.5% growth in Chinese economy would really not amount to big impact on the metals per se. But then we are still looking at numbers of 5%, 5.5%, which is still better in comparison to previous years. But I really cannot be sure of the policy impact of tariffs that will have on the overall supply demand dynamics of the entire commodity basket.
So that's one big trigger to watch out for. But apart from that, which are the other facts and figures and other triggers that you will be keeping an eye out on as far as China and its impact on commodity market is concerned?
I think it's the boost given by the central banks, which will be the most watched event in 2025, because whenever Chinese central banks give any boost in terms of monetary or fiscal space, base metals react. But then it has to be significant in order to boost all the entire base metal prices. And certainly demand definitely has to come from all the corners. But we are looking at an uncertain situation as far as Russia and Ukraine is concerned. So possibly we are in a situation wherein all the countries' geopolitical considerations are in a fix, and it really needs a solution from Trump, whether all the geopolitical solutions can be found out. And if everything is go well, I think base metals will definitely have a push. And apart from that, I think if you look at prices of gold and silver, at least clearly directing you towards uncertainty coming in for 2025.
Lot of uncertainty in 2025, but Mr. Mallya, if you had to choose one industrial metal that you will be most bullish on and one you will be most bearish on, which one will it be?
Would be most bullish on zinc and lead because we are going into arena of electric vehicles wherein these commodities would be used in higher proportion. So zinc and lead is something which I would be bullish in 2025. Copper is something probably I am not so hopeful, but it will react definitely on the measures given by the central bank and the Chinese economy, the growth of Chinese economy given by the president.
Bullish on zinc and lead, but not very bullish when it comes to copper. Mr. Mallya, thank you so much for taking your time out and joining with us, helping us understand what the implications could be of the latest macro data that is coming in from China.